Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Chris Stafford. And on this episode of Amazons, we feature Lee Craigie from Glasgow, who is a former mountain bike champion who competed for Scotland in the 2014 Commonwealth Games. She's one of the co-founders of the Adventure Syndicate, a visionary group of bike riders whose mission is to encourage more women and girls to challenge themselves, and she spends her time promoting the sport wherever she travels these days. The group completed the Highland Trails 550 this summer around the remotest reaches of Scotland, which she says was deeply rewarding to reach that level of achievement and self-satisfaction. With a ride across the Pyrenees in France next on her list of challenges, Lee and the Adventure Syndicate are truly motivating not just younger generations, but all ages to get out there on their bikes and realise their dreams. And Lee joins me now. She's in Inverness, which is the beautiful part of Scotland. Lee, welcome to the programme.
Hello, Chris.
Well, it is a lovely part of Scotland, and it has inspired you to do wild and wonderful things with these women. We're going to tell your story about the Adventure Syndicate. But let's begin with a little bit of your background in not so much adventure, but sport and biking, Lee. Where did all that come from?
Well, it was a bit of a mistake, really. I've always been into outdoor sports, my degree's in outdoor education, but I never really did anything to a highly competitive level until I was reasonably old. So I was good at lots of things, but never really focused on any one thing. And then I entered a mountain bike race at the age of 26 and just got a bit of a bug and got on this conveyor belt of wanting to get better and better and better. And 4 years later, I was the Scottish champion and heading towards being the British champion. And then before I knew it, I was a full-time mountain biking pro.
Well, that was certainly a fast track, and it obviously was meant for you. But what was it that inspired you so much, Lee? What was it that grabbed you? Because we always hear from women their stories about how they got inspired by biking or whatever sport they took up. But there's something intrinsically about it that hooks you, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. And what's interesting is that's not what got me into racing. So when I entered my first race when I was 26, it came as a bit of a shock that I was already quite good because I'd just been out riding my bike for the sheer love of it up until then. I'd ridden a lot. I'd been a little bit obsessed probably by it because it just represented this freedom. And the places that you can reach in the Scottish Highlands by bike are just incredible. You know, you want to just keep going further and further and higher and doing harder and harder things. And that really sets you up for being pretty strong and physically able, so that when you do get cajoled into entering a race by your friends, you're already strong and skillful enough to do quite well at it. So that's really how it started.
So it wasn't a challenge for you to achieve that level of fitness then, Lee, by the sounds of things. That's something that came to you naturally along that journey.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I come from a really physical family, so I was always expected to play sport and be physical. And when I was put in a competitive situation, then I was expected to rise to the challenge as well. I've got an older sister, you see. So, So the sort of physical fitness aspect, I guess, I already had before I started mountain biking and exploring the hills. And then that just gave me the extra little edge. And then I got into racing as a result of just that love of freedom, of movement in the hills.
Do you still do some racing?
Yeah, I do some racing. I've left the cross-country racing far behind. It was just too hard to keep at that top level of peak performance. So a cross-country mountain bike race is typically an hour and a half long, and you're racing at high intensity, like absolute maximal intensity for an hour and a half. And it is horrific. It's really, really, really hard and demanding. And I can still raise that if I want to now, but it's just the training that wears you down and the sacrifices that you have to make to be at that level, to race competitively at cross country on a World Cup circuit. So what I do now is adventure racing, ultra endurance, multi-day stage racing with a bit of adventure thrown in, because that really captures my imagination.
Well, it sounds like a large dose of adventure thrown in here, Lee. We're going to talk about this wonderful Adventure Syndicate that you've co-founded with a friend of yours. First of all, just give us the headlines of what you're trying to achieve. What is your mission with the Adventure Syndicate?
Okay, well, the Adventure Syndicate are a collective of extraordinary women who all happen to ride bikes and who all are pushing the boundaries, really, of what they are capable of on a bike. That's not to say that they're all incredible athletes, but they are pushing the boundaries of what they think they're capable of. And that's our message, really. We want to inspire, but we also want to encourage and enable other women and girls to really challenge what they think they're capable of, because we believe that we're capable of so much more than we think we are, and capable of so much more than the media and our society expect of women in these ultra endurance sporting environments. So that's really what the Adventure Syndicate is about, presenting this alternative female sporting role model, which is all about what we do rather than what we look like.
Do you feel that you're somewhat on a crusade or a campaign for women to promote women in sport and what they are capable of? Because we hear this from others, such as Dee Kafari, MBE, of course, who's often been on our shows here, and who talks about going solo around the world, both ways, single-handed. It really proves what women can do. And so it's much more than that single accomplishment. Do you feel that is that part of the bigger picture, the bigger mission for you? Would that be the sense of achievement as well as covering the miles that you do on these trips?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But a crusade, possibly, but it is personal. So it is about that personal challenge, and it's about promoting this personal challenge to other women. So yes, as a result of that, it would be great to change the stereotypical idea of what a woman's capable of physically, and even put a bit of a bomb under the bike industry and the media, who still like to represent women in a certain way in general. But our primary mission is just to get more people adventuring by bike.
Well, I like that expression, a bomb under the bike industry along the way, and you're probably achieving that, Lee. So let's talk about these
There's been some minor explosions.
I can imagine. Let's talk about some of these wonderful achievements that you've made. I know the one going around Scotland, over 535 miles, 4 hours and 5 days that took you. That's quite a grueling track around. Anybody who knows Scotland will know it can be as rugged as country can be. How did you choose that route? What was the catalyst for that, and who went on it?
Well, so I think that the race that you're referring to is the Highland Trail 550, and that is a completely self-supported individual mountain bike time trial. So it's all off-road, 500. Well, it was just under 550 miles, all around the north of Scotland. And it's just the clock starts and it doesn't stop until you're back over that line again. So when you eat, when you sleep, it's all up to you, but the clock doesn't stop. So the sort of people that kind of race attracts are mostly men, women. There were women in the race, but we were in the minority, and not many. It's a bit of a niche field. But the reason that I chose that event was my initial idea was to do the Tour Divide over in your neck of the woods, 3,000 miles from the Canadian border to Mexico. But it was too complicated logistically, and I probably wasn't ready for it psychologically. That's a much bigger distance to get my head around, and much more expensive. And so I thought, well, no, I'll just stay home and I'll ride the trails that I already know. Not that I've ever ridden them all back to back like that before. And I'll just see how much I can push my ability to function on limited sleep and calories, because that'd be really interesting. So that was my motivation for taking part in the Highland Trail. And I really surprised myself at just how much I enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be hell on earth, and it was actually really quite enjoyable. So simple, just this steady rhythm of getting up every day, and all you had to do was ride your bike. It was just about moving forward, and life just became so simple. And yeah, it was hard. It was really uncomfortable at times, carrying your fully laden bike over high calls, and really having to put in the miles when you're sleep deprived and you don't know when your next resupply is going to come from. But it really was weirdly enjoyable just from the simplicity.
And that in itself motivated you then, obviously. So how many of you were on that particular trail?
So from the Adventure Syndicate, there were two, but from all over the world, people came from all over the world to try their hand at that race, and I think there was 60 on the start line, and usually about a third finish and two thirds don't. But this year, a lot of people finished. I can't give you the exact statistic, but more than 3/4 finished this year.
Well, I know you're a coach as well, and we're going to talk about how you monetize this syndicate, but I'm curious as to what sort of financial reward, if any, there are for those type of adventures, those type of, they seem to me that just be done for, as a labour of love for personal achievement. But are there any of these races that are monetized?
Nope.
That's it. Right. It is very much a labour of love then.
Absolutely. There's no prize. There's no trophy. It's just you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it to prove that to yourself that you can. And there's an element of doing it to prove to other people that you can. But no, this is not about the money.
Right. Okay. Well, we've often had Trahan Chidley on our shows, and she's blogged for us, and she's talked about the enduro racing. She's the mountain biker extraordinaire too. She too goes all over the world, as do you, because you've been to some very nice places along the way, and all because you just love doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I travelled the world when I was a cross-country racer. There was some money involved in that, and when I was full-time professional, I could just scrape by. There's not tons of money in mountain biking at the level I was racing at, certainly. But now, no, you don't. The sorts of races that I'm competing in now, there's no money attached. But ways to make ends meet are varied. You can deliver talks on what it is that you've achieved. You can coach other people to do a similar thing. You can create events to bring lots of women together and showcase gear. You can get some sponsors on board. You can be partner to things. But again, I've reached this point in my life where I don't just want to say yes to any sponsor just because they're going to give me free equipment or kit. I don't need that anymore. I don't need the best of kit. I want to be aligned to brands that fit my ethos these days, and local brands and smaller niche brands I'm very happy to be aligned with. But the bigger brands that swamp the message and try and tell you what to do and what races to enter and how you should come across and are more interested really in what you look like rather than what you're delivering, I'm over that now, and I want a little bit more autonomy with what it is that I deliver on my bike.
And you've also turned this into other, valuable, I think, outcomes, such as the therapeutic side of things. Talk about that, Lee.
Well, before the Adventure Syndicate, actually, I set up a project called Psychotherapy that worked one-to-one with young people that had been excluded from school. My background, as well as in outdoor education, is in child and adolescent psychotherapy. And I found that working with these mostly young men in one-to-one rooms and school classrooms just didn't work. They just wanted to be moving, and they wanted to be out and moving and communicating through movement and creating a natural bond that seems to happen when you do outdoor adventurous things together. And so that's what I did, and I set up this project, and I worked with these boys outside and one-to-one, and realised, wow, this really works. Like, they were so engaged. And now we've opened that out, and we're delivering lots of different projects to not just socially disadvantaged young people, but women with poor mental health, and actually men with poor mental health now as part of a co-joined initiative, because I think outdoor physical activity can just reset your headspace in a way that talking therapies take a long time to get to. It's not as though, ride your bike and you'll fix, some sort of psychosis. That's not what we're getting at all. But in terms of a tool to crisis manage poor, low mood, or anger, or frustration, depression, it is a tool that works. And on top of that, we try to create communities where people can exercise outdoors together. So I think those two things, the physical activity and the community engagement, seems to really, really work for people. So that's part of this message. It's not get out there and ride for 550 miles. That's how I choose to challenge myself. You might be challenged by getting out of bed in the morning, as am I sometimes. So, it's just pick your own battle, and it requires the same amount of strength to ride 550 miles as it does to get out of your bed if you're depressed and go for a walk around the garden. That's the message that we're trying to put across.
And which age group do you feel that you've been most appealing to encourage them to get out on a bike and be adventurous as young girls?
Well, young women are an interesting bunch. So I've worked a lot with boys, and I've tried really hard to engage the same adolescent female group. I've never had any success unless I target groups of that age. So again, it's about that sociability, it's about that community. When I have targeted groups, then that works really well. Younger girls are really keen to be involved, so I try and catch them a little bit younger. Or older women, so people my age or even older seem really keen to engage with my story and the message that I'm trying to put across. But I think anyone actually can benefit from physical activity, and it's just sometimes about taking somebody by the hand and just saying that you can do this, follow me, and just supporting them through that wherever they're at. It's about meeting them where they're at first, and if you can connect with them wherever they're at first, you can get anybody on a bike.
Get anybody on a bike. I love that. And I'm sure you probably do, and people that hadn't even thought about trying it before. So let's talk about where next for you then, Lee. Where are you taking your adventures?
Where am I personally taking my adventures?
Well, your biking adventures and those for the Adventure Syndicate.
Okay, well, personally, my next trip is there's 5 women from the Adventure Syndicate going to ride over the Pyrenees, so from the Mediterranean coast to the Atlantic coast, all off-road, fully self-supported, sleeping out under the stars and cooking our own food. So that's the plan. That's the immediate plan. I think that's going to be great. That's going to be really interesting because we're quite a diverse group of women, with all. Some of us from a racing background, some of us really not. So, and we're going to make a podcast as we go, and that's going to go out on the radio. And we'll also write an article on that when we come back. So that's immediate. But in the bigger picture for the Adventure Syndicate, now we've been operating for a year. We're delivering courses and talks and workshops. And up until now, I've been doing all of that for free. And both Emily Chappell, the co-founder, and myself now need to probably find a way to make that work for us financially so that we can carry on doing that. So that's the next step, really, possibly trying to partner with some brands that can help us meet our core running costs. That's next for the Adventure Syndicate.
Right, and when do you take off to the Pyrenees then? When's that scheduled?
So I'm going to Eurobike next week, and then I go straight to the Pyrenees after that. So this time in 2 weeks' time, I'll be in the Pyrenees. Yeah.
Via Germany. How long do you expect that trip to take you through the Pyrenees?
Well, it's an easy question to answer. If it was just me, I know exactly how long it would take me, but we're moving in a group and everyone's going to have a different idea and we're going to have to be flexible within that. So it should take 7 days and we're allowing 10 so that we can be flexible and stop at the occasional cafe and, go swimming and, maybe not take life too seriously while we're doing it.
Well, that sounds like a very wise plan,
considering
you're going through the Pyrenees, a beautiful part of France, of course. So, yeah, that's going to be absolutely gorgeous. Well, it's a great adventure in total. I mean, in what you're doing with this syndicate, and I think individually you're all contributing so much to it, to the bigger picture for women in sport, encouraging, as you say, not just young girls, but mature women too, to get on a bike and just dare to dream and get out there and have a go. That's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Dare to dream, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I stole that from our good friend Dee Kafari. She's the one who dares to dream, and that's what she likes to tell anyone that she wants to get involved in her sport as well. And really, I think both of you would say you agree on this. It's really getting women exploring their own potential, whether it is on a boat, on a bike, or on a horse, wherever. It's exploring your own potential and being brave enough to, and developing the self-confidence and all the other things that sport gives you as a woman, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. And if you're not in a place where you feel safe enough to be able to push the boundaries of what you think you're capable of, then knowing that the first step is to look out for initiatives that do inspire and that can help. Little steps. You don't need to go out tomorrow and ride 500 miles. You just need to maybe even open the shed door and look at that rusting old bike. That's the first step.
There you go. That's the first step. That's a good reminder to me. And I am inspired to go a little bit further every day, thanks to you, Lee. And it's a great adventure you're doing. So I want to wish you the very best of luck and the rest of the women involved in that Adventure Syndicate. And before you go, I'm going to ask you a couple of things which I think will tell us even more about Lee Craigie and what your top 3 career highlights are.
Oh, right. Top 3 career highlights. Well, I guess the first one was in 2013, becoming the British mountain bike champion in my hometown of Glasgow. That was pretty special, and that was on the Commonwealth Games course. And the second biggest was the following year, 2014, competing for Scotland in the Commonwealth Games on that same course. Those were 2 pretty special races. But actually, when I really think hard about what was the race that I finished and I felt the best at, because you can race well but you still not be satisfied with yourself, and you can get the result but still not be satisfied. The race that I'm most proud of myself at having completed was my very first one, because I felt terrible and it was such a leap of faith to enter, and I had no idea where it was going to come. I entered the fun category and I was so broken during it. I was pushing so hard, and I was just really proud that I was able to sort of keep going. And in terms of a leap of faith, that was my biggest one. So I've got to give myself a pat on the back and stop to reflect on that one as well as any of the other bigger races.
And what do you most value about being involved in sport?
I think it gives me a sense of competence and control that I can take into all walks of life. So being able to move my body in a way that I feel strong and confident and capable is always been quite important to me. And if you feel that way, you don't have to, never mind what anyone thinks you look like, but if you feel strong, and lithe and comfortable in your own skin, then that you just exude that in conversation, in relationships, in everything. So I think that's the part that I take from sport, and I think to myself, well, what will it be like when I can't move my body or train my body, and I do start to lose my strength and fitness and agility, and I'm hoping that by then things will have shifted over into the mindset, and I'll still feel that strong and capable way because I'll have been there and I'll have had all that learning, and I'll be able to slow things down, and I'll still be able to do the more gentle things and still feel in control of the way my body moves. But you never know what life's got in store for you, do you?
You never do, but you're certainly paving the way there with this Adventure Syndicate. So I want to wish you the very best of luck, Lee, with that. And thank you for coming on the programme.
Thank you, Chris.
And we'll have a link in our show notes to the Adventure Syndicate, where you can find out more about what the women are doing, where they're planning to travel in the future, and how you can get involved in the programme. Don't forget to visit our website at wispsports.com for more coverage of women in sport around the world. And do follow us on social media at Wisp Sports. Until the next time, thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.